Tell your story, build your brand. artmedianorthwest.com. artmedianw.com. Now enjoy this conversation with Michael Callaway, part 2 of 2. What would be your advice to 14-year-old Michael if he would listen?
Fairly confident he wouldn't, but if he did, I'll give him a chance. Practice more. Understanding that distinction for me between practice and playing, because I can be playing while it's also technically practice because it's still building up muscle memory, but a lot of it was just unintentional playing or whatever. I remember when I was getting more serious about doing a music program, sometimes I'd be playing in my room just noodling away, just goofing around, like not really doing anything serious or productive. And my dad would knock on the door and come in and be like, "Hey, how's it going?" "I'm doing all right. How are you?" "Doing good." Just playing guitar. I was like, "Okay, cool." "Playing or practicing?" "Playing." "Should you be practicing?" "Yeah." "Okay. I just wanted to see how you're doing." And just kind of not being like, you need to practice more,
right.
But just something to think about, which I didn't think about it often enough. I think when I was a kid, I also had this idea that participating in musical activities at school was not going to help me be a better musician, which just feels unbelievably stupid now. But I think it was a lot of just, like, biographies of, musicians who I wanted to grow up and be just like. And I know. They didn't need to be in the school band, so why should I be in the school band? They weren't in the school. But yeah, no. Join the school band. Join the school choir, because Mr. Seeley is a great guy. And it's a shame that you never got to sing for him in a choir. Learn to read music sooner. Meet more musicians and be more open to musical ideas that aren't exactly what you want. Don't be afraid of failure, or at least let it sting, but allow yourself to be in that position where it stings. Don't be afraid of the failure, because I think there are a lot of things in life that fear of failure can get really inhibiting. And again, just make it easier to not do the thing.
Right.
Because, if I don't go to music school, then I won't know that I would have or wouldn't have made it, so I didn't fail at it. But, as I've gotten older, kind of recognizing that idea of, like, inaction is still action. And, and I think it's the kind of thing, kind of going back to the adversity bit too, with that idea of failure, because I think that fear of failure can be a big adversity to kind of try to power through. And even now, kind of trying to get music stuff going more earnestly, where any of those moments where it just feels like kind of throwing in the towel, it's like, I know those delusions of grandeur of the stadium tour and whatever, like the iota of a % of a chance that those will ever happen still exists.
Sure.
And once I say, nah, I'm done, it's gone. And so I don't get to decide when that success is going to materialize. I can do all the work that I want to, but, again, there's so many factors outside of your control. But I can do all that work, or I can decide that I'm not gonna, that I'm done, and now that chance is gone. So I don't get to decide that I'm going to get that success, but I do get to decide when that door is closed. And so as long as I keep moving, I can keep that door open.
You're prepared.
Yeah.
For whatever happens if you keep it open.
Right. And I'm not expecting Geffen or Interscope. Well, I think Geffen owned Interscope, but Warner Brothers, Universal, whoever. I'm not expecting that phone call tomorrow, but I still want to... I think still needing to believe in that. And again, my idea of success has changed on a personal level. I make a reasonable living getting to teach awesome people this amazing thing that I've had the fortune to learn from amazing people. And, I get to come home to an awesome wife, and, we live reasonably, that I'm pretty happy with that. So that's the other thing I'd tell them. Be okay with a fluctuating definition of success.
Yeah.
Because, again, success looks different for every person. And yeah, and you know, don't get wrapped up in your own ego. Again, going back to the fear of failure and the kind of uncompromising vision. Just do more things that make sense to do, and don't let yourself get in the way of your own happiness.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
There's a saying that the only way to fail is to quit.
Sure.
You know, too. And then there's also there's a book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway.
Yeah.
And that's good advice, I think, too. And I love the school band thing that you said, because I did the same thing. My guitar teacher taught on the same road as my high school, and he's like, you know, your high school has a great music program. You should get involved with it. Yeah. Like, they don't have guitar. He's like, so what? Play something else. It's music.
Yeah. That was where all the players were at my school, which was the reason that I never had like a high school band, was because I didn't go to the band kids because I didn't know the band kids very well. But those were the kids who could throw down. Yeah. You know?
I thought that said Marie Kondo for a second. Coaching. Okay.
It does spark joy.
Yeah. There you go. Nice. How do musicians and creative artists build an audience and keep from being obscure?
Oh, man. Wish I knew the answer to that question. No, I think persistence is definitely a big thing. And I think, again, having a kind of an identity, you know, because at the end of the day, doing a creative thing, depending on what you're doing, you're either selling art or a product.
Physical product.
Yeah, or, you know, your music or yourself. I mean, I think especially kind of the world we currently live in, it's really hard to be famous for art and then not just also kind of that famous, I guess I would say, in terms of just if you're, you know, creating stuff that people really like, they tend to want to know more about you. But, you know, being engaging too. And again, kind of coming back to that not compromising, but augmenting your vision as you need to. You know, like with Mr. Pink stuff, you know, I don't think we write anything that we don't move forward with anything that we don't genuinely like.
Yeah, that's good.
We don't go in with like, okay, we're going to write, here's going to be our hit song we're going to write a hook, and, you know, we're going to, you know, we got our verse 1, pre-chorus, chorus, verse 2, chorus, bridge, third verse, and everything drops down for the last chorus, and then we're out. Like, we don't go into it with that kind of mindset, but if you're doing your art to make a living off it, that means doing your art to sell it. And to sell something, somebody's got to be interested. And if your product is so obscure, it might be really hard for people to connect with that.
I think it's one thing to write great music. It's another thing to write great music that people hear. They have to hear it to love it. Yeah. And then they have to love it enough to want to share it in a cool way, not just like, here, oh, I found this song by this band, check it out. Right. And then nobody checks it out, or they do, or 4 people check it out of the 600 they...
Still waiting for that third like on the Facebook post. But no, I think that's a great point. I think that's a good point.
Yeah, and I think one of the challenges, you know, and the reason I put this question out there is because like everything is evolving so fast. You know, when I was younger, I had the dream of getting signed too. You know, and I joined a band that I thought was going to get signed, that had a manager in Seattle that flew to New York to Sony to talk to him about the band and nothing. Yeah. But you know, it was great. We played a lot of good shows and opened for some great artists and stuff like that. But and now it's so different than it was 10 years ago, and it's so different than it was 5 years ago, and it's so different than it was a year ago.
Yeah, the music industry as it exists today compared to how it existed 15 years ago when I started playing the guitar, just leaps and bounds. Yeah. You know, I think especially compared to like 1989 to 2004, certainly changes. I mean, especially if you look at like genres and stuff like that. Right. But you're going from, you know, kind of where CDs are kind of starting to take over, but you still got cassette. You still got vinyl.
Yeah.
But those are getting lesser and lesser. And then through to 2004, where now the MP3 thing's coming in. But you can still find any CD in a shop, and, people are signing artists and doing A&R and putting work into developing artists. And now it's just kind of like, it feels like it's flipped to where the artist, the band, whatever, needs to be their own accountant, manager, publisher, yada, 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 booker.
Right.
Everything in between. And then once you've built that kind of big following, then someone with a lot of money is ready to swoop in and discover you, which I think was, and, different from the days where you could sign a band to a label and give them like 3 or 4 albums to, figure it out.
Right. Right.
I'm just like, I'm sorry, where do I sign up for that?
Right.
That sounds incredible.
Well, and a lot of the bands that have gotten signed and sort of made it, but didn't sell enough records, ended up indebted to the record company for their advance to make the album and do the tour in the first place. And then it's like, that's a whole other thing,
that is very true.
Which is not ideal.
Yeah, it's so funny that, that whole kind of, that idea of, as an artist, you kind of have to be everything you need beyond the art.
Well, everybody is a brand nowadays.
Right. That I remember, as we've kind of tried to, those administrative tasks, as we've tried to kind of put them out, to different members of the band. I remember thinking of this, there's a football player for Ohio State years ago named Cardale Jones who, he was asked the question about his like academics or whatever, but the quote was, "I didn't come to play school. I came to play football." And I love that quote for so many reasons, but as a musician, I was just like, man, I didn't learn to play the guitar to be a booking agent or an accountant or a manager or a social media coordinator, but if I want to do the musician thing, like, those are things that have to happen, and
they have to happen to some extent, and it can't be too spammy and all that kind of stuff. It's tough. It's a tough thing to figure out.
Because it is interesting, too, because you even look at a guy like Bo Burnham, who I love his comedy. And he, was basically, his career was born on YouTube from videos he was making when he was in high school. And he has very little, if no, social media presence. Very small. Like, he's not, tweeting every day and Instagramming and putting up, YouTube videos day after day after day. It's like he's relatively quiet. He'll do some, press events, and he'll have his next stand-up set come out, but he does really well. So it is that kind of thing where...
Does he have an agent that does something?
Oh, probably. He's certainly probably got a good kind of corporate backing and whatnot, but even there are lots of bands that still have that corporate backing, that part of that thing is that all those areas are being, tended to. If it's not them, it's the assistant in charge of PR for them doing, tweets and whatever. So it is interesting, because I think it's really easy to get that narrow focus of you have to be really super engaged on social media. And I guess, to be fair, Bo Burnham is an example of someone who came about through social media, but then he kind of hit that certain plateau that now the content is just kind of the content, and he doesn't need to put up a video every day that has an end cap with buy my shirts. Which, not a critique or a knock on people who do that, because for a lot of those YouTubers, that's how they make their money, is not views. It's getting the links, getting the viewers to click over to the online store and buying stuff.
And affiliate marketing and things like that, too.
Yeah.
How important do you feel music and the arts are to society?
I think pretty important, because I think it's kind of what gives us joy in a lot of ways. Whether it's just our entertainment, watching the Simpsons or whatever, or there's something about art that can just connect with you on such a visceral level. And I think in terms of societies evolving, art is so intrinsically tied into that, where when we talk about the Renaissance, which was, not just art, but it was about philosophy, and I mean, you could group philosophy into art, I suppose, but it was beyond just music and visual arts and medium, but it was this kind of paradigm shift societally for, you know, that kind of place and time. And I think that art can be really good at driving certain changes, and it can also be good on reflecting on things. And there's the quote that heard so many people say that it's kind of like the mirror up to society, whatever. And sometimes it's just a silly little song. Like I have songs like that.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
Like that's Crystal. Crystal's a silly little song that I find enjoyment out of it, but there's not a deeper meaning to that. It's a pretty straight ahead song that just, I like how it sounds, as opposed to something like Monsters, which, you know, has a lot more emotional depth to it, and you know, and could have that kind of, you know, not really making a critique or a statement about society necessarily, but just kind of not critiquing, but just kind of exploring like kind of what is. So yeah, I think very important. I think in terms of driving social change, I think in terms of bringing people together, but also at the same time, like anything that's beautiful, like wielded by the wrong person, it can turn into something, you know, pretty visceral or wrong. You know, you think of like propaganda art or like kind of like neo-Nazi punk bands where it's just like, that art is not important to society, or at least I'm gonna say that.
I think it abuses,
sure,
you know,
yeah,
and it I don't think art should be wielded in a harmful way.
No,
I think it's a beautiful thing, and it should be treated with respect. And
absolutely.
I think all people, races, religions should be represented in a respectful way.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
Should musicians and creative artists just go for it, or get a stable job and do their art on the side?
I think there's certainly an argument to be made for either.
Yeah.
And for me, like my primary income is, you know, teaching guitar lessons, and so to me, it's not as much it's not the songwriting creative output, but I definitely teach in a way that I think involves my creativity a lot, because I'm sure you know this, it's like kind of one of the amazing things with one-on-one lessons is I don't have to have a curriculum designed for 30 people that realistically is going to work for at least 27. I can really cater each lesson to each individual person. And I think, so there's a amount of creativity, that enjoyment that I get out of that. And it can also kind of go back into that feedback loop where, you know, I've had times where, you know, it's just kind of playing through something with a student, you know, or maybe just kind of running some things with my hands while they're like tuning up or whatever. And I'll come up with an idea and I'm just like, oh, wait, that's kind of cool. Okay, I need to finish this lesson, and then I need to hope that I remember this.
Yeah.
So I feel like I kind of fall into the middle of that dichotomy where like I went for it in the sense that I got a music degree and my primary income is coming from my music experience. Having said that, if I didn't get the music degree and I had just tried to go out into the music scene, I would have crashed and burned so hard. You know, if I had just done that when I was 18, because again, I was not equipped with nearly enough musicality or the ego prepared to fail. So I think if you're someone who needs a safety net, have that safety net. You know, if you're someone who can go for it, go for it. But I think it's ultimately what's going to work best for that individual person.
That makes sense. Yeah. How important is story to music?
That's a good question. I think it's always telling a story, even if it's not, you know, expressly doing that. I think about instrumental pieces can, you know, tell a story. They might not have dialogue and scene transit. Well, they kind of have scene transitions based on kind of moving from one part to another. But it's always communicating something. It's always trying to kind of evoke or provoke, rather, like a response, a feeling. You know, I think it can be really important to helping people connect with it, because I know, you know, there are some people who just can't do instrumental music because there's not words there, and the words are kind of that first the words and the melody are that first thing that most people will connect with in a song. Kind of going back to lessons, I always try to tell my students, kind of listen through the layers, meaning you're not really listening to the drums. The drums are there, you hear the drums, but you're not listening to what they're doing. Listen to what they're like. Go home, put your headphones on, try to ignore the vocal melody and the guitars for a second and just focus on that rhythm section, focus on the drums, focus on the bass, hear what layer is being set there, and then kind of try to let all of it come in, which can be hard.
That's good.
And I think story can be, really nice. Again, we connect with stories. We love stories. And so I think it's pretty important. But again, there are Stairway to Heaven doesn't really have a story. Like, it kind of does, but it's so vague that
right.
And like,
well, I think the chord progression is almost a story in and of itself.
Yeah,
in and of itself. So
but comparing it to something like Iron Man, if we're just gonna go through the cliche classic rock songs, which, man, I've been teaching a student Iron Man recently for the student concert. Yeah,
right.
You're teaching. Yeah, I forget how awesome that song is.
It's pretty awesome.
You take it for granted because you've listened to it for so many times. Right. Then you listen through it, and you just kind of remind, it's like, oh, it's got all these different parts. It's got all these beats it hits. It's got that tempo and key change in the middle of it for the guitar solo. Like, it's cliched because it's amazing.
Right.
But it tells a story, you know. It tells, the dude who kind of
lost his mind, or
travels through the void or an interdimensional thing. I think it was, because I was reading about this after I did my first lesson with that student for Iron Man. I think what it is like a time traveler who, like, sees that the world is, like, ending, and, like, part of him teleporting through time or whatever, like, he's just kind of, like, turned into that kind of quote-unquote Iron Man, and so he's, like, trying to warn the people of the modern day as he comes back of the impending doom, and, no one treats him well, and they kind of chastise him and mock him, and then he ends up being the doom. Like, he, now Iron Man has his revenge, and that's kind of what the implication is supposed to be.
Wow.
Which
it's different than Tony Stark then, right?
Yeah, a little bit. Not as quippy as him either.
Okay, right.
So yeah, I think stories are one of the easiest ways to connect, and so I think they can be really important to music, but I think sometimes the story can take precedent over the music. Sometimes the music needs to be there to serve a story.
Sure.
Sometimes the story just needs to be there to serve the music.
Yeah. Like a Bob Dylan song versus
Black
totally. Sabbath song.
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally.
How can music and art help people, and have you seen an impact?
Yeah, I think it just makes better people.
That's a good thing.
It accesses parts of the brain, like, for problem solving, critical thinking, gets you thinking creatively. I think especially as you get more and more into music theory and you learn how formulaic a lot of stuff is or can be.
Right.
I was trying to preface music theory with, music theory is not the directions from point A to point B. It's the map, and you can see where A and B are. Here's the different ways you can get there. Here's some kind of conventional ways that are probably going to be the path of least resistance. Here's these really wonky ways that you're just going to be going around mountains and whatever, but you'll eventually get there, and it'll probably be a pretty insane story when you do. It can get into those parts of the brain, and really, I think it can really interact with left brain and right brain really well in terms of accessing that, emotional, creative side, but also that, kind of more calculating, logical side, and kind of marry the two. And I think that's really cool. And, in terms of the impact, I think it's, like, in lessons, it's always super fun when you get to see students have that, like, aha moment of, we've been talking about, a concept or something. Like, I have it a lot of times when I start to work on people with improvising, and I tend to be I throw them in the deep end of the pool and tell them they need to figure out how to tread water. Yeah. And then, we'll do other stuff. Sure. I'm not just putting on a
all right, here's a kickboard. You can float at least.
Yeah, but it's we'll learn some scales, and we'll pull up a backing track that will use those scales, and here's some ideas that you can use, but ultimately you're gonna have to figure out kind of how to stay afloat. And so again, that kind of, when that accesses that kind of critical thinking stuff, and also that kind of thinking on the fly, but then when that aha moment happens of they played something that just was tasty and just fit perfectly, and then the whole thing just kind of stops because it was that cool that it was just whoa. I mean, I can still remember a couple of those aha moments from my own guitar lessons.
Those are great.
I'd be curious to ask you, just with someone who's got more teaching and overall music experience, what are the kind of impacts that you've seen it had, and what do you think?
As far as music goes, or just so I've seen people pick themselves up out of very dark places, because they have something to do that gets them through it, and that's huge, because I think pain is a real thing that everybody deals with, no matter who they are. And having something that's a relatively healthy, it can be a culture. Music can be a culture. It can be a, community of people. So I think it's extremely therapeutic, and I think connections can go a lot deeper. Even just when you meet somebody and you both like dig the same band, or you were at the same show and you're just like, wow, I love that band, and I was there, and
totally,
you just like have this instant connection. Another thing is being in another country, playing music with people that barely speak English, but we could play through like the Eagles' greatest hits, or you know what I mean, or like play like Led Zeppelin 4 from beginning to end, pretty much, or whatever. I mean, that was so fun, because you can sit down for hours and not say a word and just play a bunch of songs with people that you've never met before. And there's rad. Something to that. As far as students go, I love seeing when the light bulb comes on, and I love making the connections of, this seems really, really hard, and then suddenly it gets like, used to take you a month to learn a song. Now it takes you 20 minutes, and now it takes you 5 minutes. And oh, by the way, here's a 1-5-6-4 chord progression. And now you can play 8 of the songs on the Imagine Dragons album if you know what key they're in.
Right. Yeah, it's, a moment I love, especially like early on with students, is, I tend to, and it's something I've kind of been changing more and more, but, when I started playing the guitar, like my first lesson, I learned G, C, and D. And so a lot of my first lessons, because I haven't, get like my first teaching experience was 14 years ago, but it was so unprepared and uncultivated that I don't really count it.
Right.
But teaching at 5-star, the last 3 years has been the only time in my life where I've had a student roster this big.
Right.
And so I've I've figured out a lot more quickly how to kind of shift from, rather than just doing the same thing with everybody over and over again, to trying to, if it's a 6-year-old kid who chords are kind of tough, it's like, let's start with just some rhythm stuff and really simple tab stuff.
Right.
But with those chords, you kind of get the like the walking fingers of, like, as you're going to that C chord, you're going 1, 2, 3, and kind of getting each finger down at a time. So I love the aha moment when those fingers stop moving as 3 and start moving as 1.
Right.
Because then it's just like, hey, that chord, that was right in time. It was smooth, and everything moved exactly how it was supposed to. That's a super fun one, because that's that kind of one of those first hurdles for, okay, now I can play something and really have it sound like music.
Right.
Not like strum, 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 switching chords, strum, strum,
right,
strum.
Yeah.
Which is still important.
Oh, it's a big step.
It's a big step, and so I think those, when
the timing gets there too. Yeah. I had one. This guy took lessons from me for about 3 or 4 years. And his mom was a professional violinist. She played with like the Portland Opera and stuff like that. So he grew up around music, but when he started with guitar, he just started really taking off with it. And it's just like, I kept hearing him in his lessons, and he got this new G&L guitar, and I'm just like, man, that guitar sounds really good. Every time. Like, consistently. And that's a really good sounding guitar. And then my wife at the time bought me the same guitar.
Oh, nice.
So then, that's one of my number one guitars now.
Oh, okay. Is that is that the Telly?
The G&L, the Telly. Nice. And then
that is a good guitar.
It is. Yeah, they have a unique sound and always sound really good. But he ended up playing a gig with the band that I was in. It was mostly a cover band. And so neither of us had very much time to get together before the gig. So it was like, okay, the gig's tomorrow night. Let's do a lesson on Friday, and then you can play with us a 4-hour show on Saturday. So we had a 1-hour lesson, and we went through 40 songs.
Jeez.
And he learned them all in an hour. So
dang,
that's fun.
That's bonkers.
And he killed it. Like, he did really well, because it's like, this is just a 1-5-6-4. This one is a 1-4-5 12-bar blues style. It's in A. So you could check off quite a few of those songs, and like, and then you go through all the weird tricky bits, and that's where most of the time is spent. But Yeah, so 40 songs in an hour is pretty good.
It's impressive.
Yeah.
It's impressive, yeah.
No, Joff gets credit for your part of your guitar prowess.
Well, it was almost you. No joke. I thought
You're just like, that guy's too old. I need to learn from the one with the mohawk.
No, it was the original 5-star location. So this was, I took like a 6-month hiatus from lessons after I stopped at What's Up Music. Kind of gave it a shot of like, you know, I've learned some basic things. Let's see kind of what I can do going forward, and I didn't progress. But so I had a buddy in school who had, you know, recommended you for lessons. So we went into the little house on Cornell to sign up for lessons, and I think just scheduling didn't work.
Right.
So I ended up with Joff, and so I did a lesson with him, and you know, it was good first lesson. Then we moved over to Tannisbourne and did a couple of more, and then went to, this was back when he was in Western Aerial, and he had a show at the Hawthorne Theater that I went to, and it just blew my little 16-year-old mind. Well, yeah. The first 3 bands were, you know, kind of so-so, but it was funny because it was like I was there with a buddy of mine, and there was just like hardly anyone else there for those first 3 bands, and so I was like, all right, so I guess this is just how that's gonna go. And then 3rd band ended, and then there's just this big swell of people who came in, and just like place was packed. And then, you know, they went and played, and that was the first time I heard them, and, you know, and I was just like, I'm not taking lessons from anybody else.
Right, yeah. No, that would do it. You know? That would sell that,
you know,
yeah.
I mean, and then obviously when I went to college, and I took lessons from Neil Grandstaff, and I've popped in for a lesson or 2 with Nathan Baker for the kind of gypsy jazz stuff. But
he's awesome.
Yeah, no, so it is kind of funny that I'm glad that I've still gotten to know you, even if it wasn't as one of your students.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Likewise, Michael.
Yeah.
All right. So what skills are important for everyone to learn?
I think communication is a big one. And I think I've heard a few other people in other episodes of your podcast, you know, kind of say that same thing.
Yeah,
so I'll try
true.
to keep it brief. But I do think there are so many, a lot of times, think of like an interpersonal relationship, a lot of times when there's conflict, it's really common for it to be about how things are being communicated or miscommunicated. You know, like I've had those people have different communication styles, and so when one person is kind of doing like a cold shoulder thing or something, it might just be that it's like, they're fine, they're just not like actively engaging in it, and the other person is thinking like, oh, because that's what I would do if I was like, screw them, so they assume that the other person is acting how they would.
What that means,
you know?
yeah.
And I think given the length of time we've been talking, it's not surprising to find out that I tend to prefer over communication than under communicating things, because if I need to say the thing 3 times for it to be heard once, I will,
sure,
as opposed to saying it once. But sometimes part of that too, like I know there are definitely people who don't like over communication because it can be redundant, and I respect that too, and I don't relish doing like needing to say the same thing over and over and over again. But I think communication's a big one, and again, just kind of empathy and all the things, just the things related to kind of understanding one another, because I think I just think there are a lot of issues that if empathy and communication are being practiced, it's like you can understand, okay, I'm not going through what this person is going through. These problems are not affecting me directly, but I can still care about them because I can empathize with that person, and I can have a strong communication where they illustrate to me these things that are happening that are outside of my scope, which I think, especially growing up a middle-class white kid in the suburbs, like, it's really easy to just, like, I'm not going to say I didn't have my own problems growing up, but I lived pretty comfortably, so it requires empathy to be able to understand that other people haven't.
Right.
And, you know, some people have, you know, had it worse off than me, some people have had it better off than me, and that, you know, I can communicate with those people and try to understand those things and maybe help make those things better one way or another.
Have you heard Rockin' the Suburbs by Ben Folds?
I have not.
You should
I'll
look
check
that
it
up.
out.
Yeah.
I was gonna, just by the title, that sounds wonderful.
It's very entertaining, I gotta say. Yeah. All right. For a student to get the most out of their lesson, what should they do to prepare, or what could they do to prepare, including practice week, mindset, and anything that comes to mind?
I think if it's a very first lesson, for like, guitar or a strung instrument specifically, doing a little bit of advanced homework on how to tune is really nice. 'Cause I don't know about you, but like I've had some students who it's like we can work on tuning for like the first 5 minutes and then we're off to the races. I remember like right after I started, I had one lesson where I was trying to lead off with how to tune, and it ended up taking all 30 minutes. And then it was like, okay, well, practice tuning this week, I guess. So I think if it's a relatively simple skill, but it takes lots of practice to get better at it.
Yeah, tuning by ear.
Tuning by ear is tough.
Yeah.
That is a skill that takes in practice to develop. But I mean, even, tuning with a little snark tuner, it's like you can, once you've done it enough, you can get tuned up really, really quickly. But then as a kid, okay, it's flat, so I'm going to bring it up. Now it's sharp. I'm going to bring it back. Now it's flat.
Now it's flat.
All right, now I'm going to go to the next string. It's not changing. It's not changing.
I'm holding
the wrong key.
Yeah, I've broken a few strings that way myself. So.
Yeah, and but I think beyond that, I think going in, knowing what your expectations are, knowing what your desires are, what your goals are beyond I want to play the guitar, because I think we both know that goal is unbelievably vague, and there's so many different ways. Like I can teach you a G chord and a C and a D, and you can get through a lot of songs with those 3 chords. Like I've done my job. But I think in terms of like week to week, like once you're in lessons, I think practicing is super important. It's something that, again, like if I go back and talk to 14-year-old Michael, it'd be, those things that you're supposed to practice in between lessons, do them, or at least, prioritize them more strongly. But I think, beyond that, just practicing, one of the things that I gained from guitar lessons, with Joff and with Neil certainly, was that idea of becoming, more self-sufficient in my learning, which at a certain point lessons end. And depending on where you want to go with them afterwards, you need to know how to learn and kind of how to teach yourself, which was a lot easier for me when I stopped doing lessons because I had spent so much time not doing the things that I was supposed to be doing in lessons, but going and finding other things to do. So I always tell my students, work on this stuff. If there's a song that like you hear between now and our next lesson and you spend the whole week working on that was still a lot of work you're putting into something, and like we can just do whatever I told you to do. We can do that at our next lesson and check in on that thing that you were working on. Because I think being adventurous in your learning and not being, if you're expecting all the learning that you're gonna need to do to get out of the instrument what you want to happen in 30-minute sections once a week, it's going to take a really long time.
Right.
There's a lot of work that has to be, put in at home, where it's like I have some of those students who it's like, boy, they put that work in at home, and they come in, every week or every other week, and I see them and I'm just like, kind of going back to that, like, knowing how to write your part idea. Like I just kind of sit back and I'm just like, I'm going to try to not just like interject too much and ruin this unbelievable streak they're on. I'm just gonna kind of keep going, bud.
Yeah,
like, that's great.
Right.
So I think practice, knowing the things that you can do to enjoy the instrument. Because I also know for me, after going through music school, my like academic approach to music became very intense is the wrong word, but very based out of the recent experience that I had going through music school.
Right.
And a 7-year-old doesn't need that.
No.
But so I do try to make a conscious effort with my students, regardless of age or skill level, like make sure you identify the things that you have fun doing with this and do those things. Like,
yeah.
Because I know, like, I'll be the first to admit, I hate practicing. I absolutely hate it. There was a Ray Lewis, the former football player, he had a quote about his salary. That's paying Monday through Saturday. That's paying me for practice. That's paying me to watch tape. That's paying me to rehab injuries. Sundays you get for free. The game, that I'll do for free. You're paying me for everything else in between.
Yeah.
And, that's the kind of thing where it's just like, I always kind of resonated with that quote because I don't know, like, yeah, just at least sitting down, and it just has never been super fun for me. But at the same time, I know that when I do sit down and do those practice sessions, I tend to have more fun than I expect to, And then when I'm playing later and I'm just goofing off for fun, it sounds way better.
Yeah.
And so...
You notice the difference,
knowing that the carrot at the end of the stick, like, that it tastes pretty great. So put in that work to grab it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. For me, work ethic has been a acquired skill. It is not something I inherently have.
Well, what's so funny, because it's different for me. As a kid, I was really we were outside all the time, and I was getting my friends, let's build a fort, you know, let's go down to the church rummage sale and buy stuff and then sell it at a garage sale for more. So I was always doing stuff like this. I brought gum and candy in junior high and sold it. I had a big duffel bag, and I had a teacher asked me to stay after class one day, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm in trouble. And he's like, I want you to know something. I was like, okay. He goes, what you're doing is free enterprise. If anybody gives you any hassle, have them talk to me. I'm like, great. Yeah. So that's awesome. So
I'm really good at not holding myself accountable if there's not anything else to do it.
Yeah.
Where it's I think especially too, just working 40 hours a week, and that now that's what I've been doing for a couple of years, and so that's kind of settled in. I've just been a lot of days I just get home and I just don't have the energy to feel like I'm gonna write a kick-ass song right now. It zaps the creativity. It just kind of feels exhausting, which doesn't mean I don't do it, but it means that it's I have to really get myself to do it, as opposed to if it's something if someone's paying me to play or write something and I need to have it by a certain deadline, I'm working on that, because now I've got a reason outside of myself to do that, you know, and kind of similar with the student concert tunes. It's I will try to put work into those, because I know I'm not doing that for myself. I'm doing that for my students and the concerts in general, to get those performances to be as good and as fun as they possibly can.
Yeah.
But if it's just something that I'm doing just for myself, I'll do it tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's healthy to some extent, though, to have those...
I think you need to find the middle.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think being too far to either end can be dangerous or just unhealthy.
Right. So what are some social issues that people should care more about?
I think in terms of human rights, just kind of anything that invalidates a person's existence. Things like racial discrimination, which, still definitely exists today. I think, discrimination of just about any kind, but I think some LGBT kind of issues and things there, which, again, that's not my kind of identity, so I won't try to speak too much to it, other than that, I just find it a lot easier to try to get to know a person as they are, and not what my preconceived notions have decided they should be.
Right.
Again, I think that kind of goes back to the communication and empathy thing. I think in general, don't be afraid to communicate, especially if you're making a willing intent to understand and to be compassionate. There's been this whole kind of this whole reaction to kind of the Me Too movement of these employers. So it's or these, people, I don't feel like I can, talk to women anymore because I'm afraid that I'm gonna, do something. And it's I don't feel like it should be that hard to not be gross. But again, but it's the kind of thing, where when I'm trying to understand somebody else, I've definitely had those foot in mouth moments.
Sure.
Of, talking to somebody and trying to understand their experience with racial discrimination, and, saying something that was heartfelt and genuine, but ended up just kind of coming out kind of rude. And
I think that's the scary part, is if you phrase something wrong, I'll say something wrong to people that I know really well, and they'll be like, well, what do you mean by that? And it's just
sure,
let me rewind and try to say it the way that I had it in my brain before the words came out. Because it wasn't meant in any kind of... way. But
yeah. I think, and I think that's the kind of thing too, is that it's like, you know, if I say something that, you know, offends someone else and they, you know, have the courage to tell me that, because it's also really tough to kind of stick up for yourself in those kind of situations.
I think that's the best case scenario is if they come to you and tell you something and it's not a you're fired and we're going to have this on your record because you were saying something in this way, and you're just like, well, first of all, that's not what I meant. I clarified that that's not what I meant.
Sure.
You know, because a friend of mine had that happen and got fired, and that was like, there was a meeting, she got fired, and her intention was explained in the meeting, like the context was explained. It wasn't what it sounded like. She apologized. She did all of the things she was supposed to do, and she got fired. And it was just this big like HR scandal thing. It's like, that's too bad.
Yeah, I think in most cases, if you're coming to it with like legitimate compassion, and I think the other thing too is like making sure, you know, you do it with someone that you're comfortable enough asking that of, as opposed to, you know, just kind of random person on the street. Which I'm not trying to speak to the scenario you laid out at all, because I have no information other than what you just told me. So me trying to speak to that would be pointless. But I think in most cases, if you go into it with compassion and a true desire to understand a person and connect with them more, when you do put your foot in your mouth, it's, you know, they might react strongly. They might just do a little like, oh, hey, that's not cool. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's fine. But I think that's the kind of thing too, is a lot of times the reaction to the, like, you just said something that was really uncool, is the, but I didn't mean it like that. And it kind of, and it changes the conversation from I have hurt you to you have been hurt by this thing that I did, and dissociating it from me.
Right.
It's the difference between like I'm sorry that I hurt you versus I'm sorry if I offended you, because that's putting like the entire onus for that situation on that other person and divorcing yourself of like the responsibility to it.
Right.
You know, it's that's
tough.
it's a heavy. There's a lot of publicity there that there's a lot of stuff to
and some of it is
dive deep into,
like super well founded and unfortunate.
Yeah.
What is it like working with artists and musicians?
You know, I don't think too much different than, you know, just kind of working with other people.
It's so funny. I think Nate said exactly that same thing. Yeah.
That's great.
I was like,
which is funny because we've had 2 bands that we've been in together. We've had 3 different places where we've both worked, including, you know, 5 Star. So it makes sense that we would both say that. But, you know, yeah, I mean, I think because artists and musicians are just people who are doing a thing that they're doing for whatever reason they've decided to do it.
Okay.
The same way that when I'm working in the stockroom at Crate and Barrel a couple of years ago, while I was trying to build up my student roster so that I could make enough doing that, working with people who were coming into positions with different intensities, different aspirations. So you can meet artists and musicians who are unmotivated. You can meet some who are incredibly motivated and right on top of it. The same way that you go into an office and, you know, there's a person sitting in this cubicle who was just waiting until 5 o'clock to punch out and get out. Right. And then that other person who got there early and stayed late or whatever. And you know, it's not to say like that. I think people are people, and I think working in a musical capacity is a lot more fun than, you know, working in a stockroom or a cubicle or whatever, which is not to kind of belittle or mock those things. They have not worked for me as well. You know, but at the same time, I think the most frustrated I've ever got in like those kind of group work scenarios have been with other artists and musicians, as opposed to, you know, just other people who are working in the same office as me, or in the same store as me, or on the, you know, the same group research project for Biology 101.
Right. All right. Is there a way that we as artists can work together, help one another, maintain our creativity and our own vision for our journey?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, I think, you know, supporting each other is always really good, and that's a pretty vague statement. I mean, you know, going to people's shows, you know, going, you know, viewing their art, sharing their stuff. I mean, at the same time, it's like that can get really exhausting too, just because there's such an overabundance of it.
Right. It's hard when you work in a guitar shop and it's like everybody that you know has a gig on Saturday night, and you're just like,
and I'm just like, but I could just watch like Game of Thrones reruns, like, and I can be in my pajama pants for that.
Right?
I can't go to the rock show in my pajama pants.
Right.
People judge me. I think I've gotten more and more comfortable with, you know, sitting and kind of stewing with like, this is really hard.
Yeah.
And being able to be vulnerable and open enough with other artists to kind of acknowledge that difficulty and the kind of the fears and the struggles that can come with that, rather than, I think and I don't really experience this too much, but there can definitely be those people who it's kind of like the Facebook profile. It's like everything on the exterior looks perfect. Yeah, looks fantastic. But it's like there has to be something.
Going on cruises every weekend or every month or whatever.
You know, but not really. You know, I think being real and honest with each other, I think, been a part of some great discussions about, like, if you're at my show and I played like crap and you tell me great job, like, there are some people who get pissed off at that. I just accept it as it's part of the thing, and, you know, if I feel like I played really poorly, I probably don't want to talk to anybody anyways.
Sure.
But I've had some people who it's just like, no, if it was rough, like, give me the criticism, give me the critique. I want to be better. And there's a value in that too. I think if every time I got off stage to my musician friends, I got 10 different critique points of like how to make it better, I think that would start to get a little bit difficult to deal with.
Yeah.
You know, so I think, you know, finding your people that you can be honest and open with, and finding ways to that kind of constructive criticism, because I think there are very few people who are better artists completely in isolation without working with other people. There are some people who can do a lot of stuff by themselves and it's really impressive. I, as a musician, I've only experienced things being better when other people kind of gave me feedback and critiques. There was this once, I never ended up doing anything with it, but there was this song that I was working on. This was back in Corvallis, and I don't remember what the chord progression was, but I showed it to Nathan, and Nathan pointed at like one of the chords, and he was like, I don't like that one. That one should change. And I really liked that one there, so I was like, you know, whatever, he's wrong. So then I go and show it to one of my other bandmates later, and he picked out the exact same chord, and he was like, that one should change. And then I was just like, dang it. Because it was like, you know, if one of my bandmates has, you know, that opinion, it's like, okay, we're each on one side of the thing. If I have two musicians who I, you know, trust and respect and enjoy working with telling me that thing needs to change, it probably needs to change.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same way that if I've tried to be pretty good at, like, if I'm the only one in the room who isn't digging the song, let's do the song.
I thought you were going to say find another room.
No. But it's like, if it's an 80-20 split between 5 people about does this work or not, and I'm alone on an island, like, it's probably not that everyone else is out to get me.
Right.
It's probably that the thing's not as good as I think it is, and it needs work.
Yeah, what's funny about music is that we have trained ears. We're used to hearing things in a certain way. Yeah. And when we hear it differently than that, sometimes it can, you know, kind of go against the grain a little bit, and you're just like, I don't know if I like that. But sometimes that's where the catchy stuff is too. Yeah. So it's a fine line between
kind of implicitly be okay with getting critique and feedback, right?
Yeah, you have to have a thick skin a little bit, which And another thing is, it's our expectations are what let us down, right? It's not the actual thing.
Right.
It's like, oh, if I expect everything that I'm going to make to be brilliant and everybody to love it,
wait, it's
probably not. Well, not for me.
No,
I mean,
not
for you, I'm sure it is.
No, not for me at all. Not for me at all.
No, but, you know, it's like, I know that half of the stuff I'm going to play is garbage right now. So just tell me what's garbage.
Yeah.
And we'll morph it into something that's not garbage, or try something else.
Well, and it'll be the same thing, you know, where, especially with Nathan and I, as we've grown our musical horizons, and we'll find some weird concept or idea that, you know, we think is super cool. And I think the way that I usually kind of put it is like, if I've made a song way weirder than it needs to be because I'm trying to make it more intellectually interesting for me, I have to remind myself, don't get cute with it.
Right.
Serve the song is a mantra I've heard that I really like, with the idea being that it's like, you know what, if the song doesn't need a Neapolitan chord, it probably shouldn't have one.
Right. No, I think serve the song is the best thing, you know, honestly. And I've also heard that likened to if you're on a whitewater raft, you know, and the raft is going backwards, don't try to make it go forward. Just let it go backwards a little while, because it's the way it needs to go.
Absolutely.
Michael.
Yes.
Are there any questions I should have asked you that I didn't?
I don't think so. I think you did a pretty good job.
I try.
I'll give you a golf clap.
Golf clap, thank you.
Yeah.
How can folks find you online?
So, with my band Mr. Pink, facebook.com/MRPINKPDX, so Mr. Pink PDX, but no period after the MR, because URLs. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. I think Instagram is also the kind of /Mr. Pink PDX. I think with Twitter we had to go with Mr. Pink Music, because Mr. Pink PDX was taken. But, you know, our album's on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. You can find it pretty much any music streaming platform you use. You can find it. There's surprisingly more than one artist with our name. So if you're looking for our album, if you search Mr. Pink Lip Service, that tends to put you right onto it. If you just search Mr. Pink, you might have to kind of sift through some things before you kind of land on us. But the album cover is really easy to identify. It's like red and pink, and it's got this lipstick kind of like having been opened, you know, and exposed kind of on the cover, which Nathan did, and it looks awesome. And, you know, kind of going back to that, you know, missing the album art and stuff, you know, it's phenomenal album art, and it's only ever really existed as like a thumbnail image on a computer screen or on download cards.
Okay.
You know, which bums me out because he did such an awesome job on it. Like the back cover too, which the back cover I think might only be visible in like our Facebook photos, because the download card doesn't need it. A Spotify thumbnail doesn't need the backside either, but he did a killer job with that too.
Yeah, he's good at that stuff,
yeah,
for sure. So how can folks support your music, you think? You
know, follow us on those platforms. Come to our shows. You know, if you like it, tell your friends and bring them along. Think, yeah, just if you're digging what you're doing, you know, we've got the download cards, and we tend to, you know, just like, I think officially they're $3-4, but, you know, if you come up to me after a show and ask for one, I'll give you one. If you want to pay for it, cdbaby.com, I believe, is where you can pay for the MP3s. That's where you'd have to go to use the download code from the download card anyways. But yeah, I'd say that'd be a thing to check out. And then as far as supporting us, keep an eye on our social media pages, and if we got a show you can make it to, come check it out. I think you'll have fun. If you mention like you heard the podcast and came and checked, like, I'll give you a big hug. Or if you don't want a hug, I'll just give you like a good handshake or whatever, because like physical contact, not everybody's thing, so I want to respect that. But like if I'll give you a big hug if you want it. And yeah, I think that's about it.
Awesome.
Yeah, money.
Right? Money helps a lot. Well, people need people need resources to be able to keep making art, because until it's making money, it's costing money, right?
Right. Yeah, the thing that I realized when we got really serious about, you know, kind of, you know, being a band, you know, not being like a band, but like, you know, doing it. was it's basically like you're starting a small business and you've just got like the worst business model.
I think you're right.
I
think I've found that.
Which, when I say it like that, I'm just like, what am I even doing? But
it seems so cynical, but we can laugh about it.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not. But I think a band, it's not it's obviously not entirely a business venture,
right?
And
clearly,
the same way that like if I'm really passionate about cooking and I start a restaurant, that restaurant's not about my passion to cook. It's about making money,
right?
But
otherwise it's not a restaurant very long.
Yeah.
So how can folks book guitar lessons with you?
They can. So I teach out of 5 Star Guitars. They can go to our store in Beaverton, right off of Highway 26. They can also call in over the phone. I think our number's 503-439-9500. Yeah, buddy. And likewise, you can go on the line. Go on the online. Go on the
interwebs.
Yeah, them worldwide internets. Go onto our website, 5starguitars.com. 5 spelled out F-I-V-E, not the numeral. There's a lessons tab. Click it. Go to book a lesson. You can get signed up through there. That can be pretty convenient if that's your kind of thing. If you're very much a in-person kind of pen and paper in your planner, you can come in and sign up for lessons. If you come in the morning between Monday and Thursday, I'm probably around to book lessons, and if it's after that, then I'm teaching lessons and usually busy with that. But yeah, that'd be the best way to do it. I love teaching guitar, and I also teach ukulele and music theory and stuff. I do a little bit of
voice too, right?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm not like actively accepting vocal students just because, and at least in terms of, I feel a lot more composed and I feel a lot more rounded out as a guitar player.
Sure. Than
I do as a vocalist, especially just because I've certainly had vocal training. I still see Ray from time to time to get some, tips from him on singing and, especially breath control. My very first singing instruction was Mary Kay Butcher Babcock, who was my elementary school music teacher. Russ Christensen was my choir director at Oregon State, who was a phenomenal choir conductor. And so I've had vocal people, but I've had so few one-on-one vocal lesson interactions that, I'm kind of working to expand it more a little bit. I don't think I'd ever really want to have more than 2 or 3 at a time, as opposed to I could teach nothing but guitar lessons all day. I like teaching the uke, but it's not where my passion is the way that the guitar is.
Right.
Trying to get better at the bass so that I can kind of teach that more in earnest, because I've had a couple of bass students. Mark
DeForge,
Mark DeForge, was one who started off with me, and kind of when he started off with me, I was like, this will probably go for a little bit, and then I'm gonna tell you to go talk to one of our bass, one of our other bass teachers, because I can get you started a little bit, but eventually we will hit that kind of end point sooner rather than later. And now he's doing lessons with you, and it's been so fun to watch him at student concerts and just
picking up a ton
getting
of songs.
into it.
Yeah.
And you've done a phenomenal job of cleaning up the bad habits that I would have programmed into him.
Trying.
No, but so just primarily guitar, but a few voice lessons here or there, bass lesson here or there.
Well, Michael, thank you so much for taking the time and telling us your story.
Absolutely.
Look forward to hearing more of your music and
thank you.
Teaching with you more and
absolutely
rocking out.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah.
Find out more at artmedianorthwest.com. ARTMedianw.com.